Hey everybody, good evening and welcome into another edition of KC Sports Tonight. Here we are on May the 5th and we have a 5-pack of topics for you here on Cinco de Mayo. We're going to talk about the Royals, Chiefs rookie minicamp, the weekend in KC soccer, a big retirement coming out of the world of KU basketball, and the KC Mavericks. We're joined as always, not as always, but often by the great Gabe Swartz. Gabe, how's your weekend? How you doing today?
Good. Beautiful weather. Got out, hit some range balls last night. It's starting to really feel like summer.
Yeah, it really is. Certainly is today. Hitting golf balls, definitely a good way to get into a good mind space, especially for all these topics and some people who are really hitting the heck out of the out of the baseball yesterday, where the Kansas City Royals they hit 7 home runs against the Baltimore Orioles and set a new franchise record. The Royals, they're one of the hottest teams in all of baseball. They've won 11 out of their last 13 games. Now they welcome in the last place in the American League, AL Central, the Chicago White Sox of town for a 4-game set. Gabe, for me, I think the Royals have kind of calmed the fan base, because I think maybe going into the last 2 weeks, this was a fan base that they were ready to hit the panic button. They're like, oh no, we're going to lose 90 games. We're not going to make the playoffs. Do you think the Royals have kind of silenced a lot of the doubters?
I think that the 5-1 road trip has convinced people, or not necessarily convinced, but it certainly calmed people. I think it has reminded people that this is a good baseball team, and that the 2-8 road trip was a combination of a lot of factors that I don't necessarily think are indicative of exactly what this team is going to be. Last year, we all know about how well they hit with runners in scoring position. Vinny had a career year. Bobby had a career year. Salvi had a great season, one of his best in the last half decade. And so because of that, I think expectations for the Royals run producing was extremely high, and people maybe forgot how tough scoring was in September when they didn't have Vinny, and because the production was similar to that, the thought of, like, is this the new Royals offense? Is this what it is? Well, in reality, it's probably somewhere in between. And you start to look at the metrics now. You look at the even just the basic statistics: batting average, runs scored. They're 25th in runs scored now. They're 18th or 19th in batting average. So they're getting back toward the middle of league average. And when you're a league average offense, but you're top 5 in pitching and ERA, and you've got one of the best rotations, and you've got a great bullpen that is solidified by Lucas Erceg and Carlos Estevez, that's a recipe for winning baseball. So a really successful road trip. This week, it feels like they have kind of like they're coming home to run on a treadmill, and the White Sox are that treadmill, because they are a team that you should take 3 out of 4 or sweep from.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you just made there. So here we are, 35 games through the season. The Royals are 19-16. 35 games. We're close to 40. We're about 20-25% of the way through the season. And I think we have a pretty good idea of who this team is going to be. Are they going to score 11 runs a game, 6 runs a game? No. It looks like the Royals, they're going to win games 4-1, 3-2. We're in for a long, stressful ride with these guys. But it looks like they are better than a lot of the teams. The Royals, I mean, Bobby Witt Jr., we say it every time almost we're on the show, like he's a legitimate superstar. And just look at what the Royals have done with such low offensive production. They are still 19 wins here on the season. And then yesterday with the kind of the homer explosion, a lot of those obviously being solo homers. I think just one, the last one from Michael Massey, was the only one that wasn't a solo homer.
Yeah.
If the Royals can just find a way to get a couple people on base, Gabe, it really seems like the offense could take a big step, especially because home runs come in bunches.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you told me, oh, the Royals are going to go to Baltimore, if you told me on Friday when I was talking to Neil about this and we were discussing how long is the Bobby Witt hit streak going to go, and he didn't get a hit on Friday, he didn't get a hit on Saturday. If you told me, oh, Bobby's going to go 0 for his first 11 in the Orioles series, what do you think the record's going to be? I wouldn't have predicted that they were going to win 2 out of 3. And part of that is because Chris Bubich pitched really, really well on Saturday night. Given the circumstances, given the rain delay, getting through 5 innings was incredibly impressive from him. And Michael Lorenzen, he ran into some home run trouble. He gave up 4 of them, but nobody was on base for any of them. So as far as limiting the damage, that was better served than what the Orioles were doing. So, I think that it was a overly successful road trip, and now they're coming home with a chance to do some incredible stuff. I think what I'm looking forward to is you saw a home run on Thursday from Bobby. You saw a home run on Sunday from Bobby. He had a double to the gap yesterday afternoon as well. If he's able to hit for some more power, that is going to jumpstart the offense because he's still doing some of his normal stuff, getting on base at a high clip. Jonathan India is getting on base at a high clip, even though he's not necessarily hitting. He's walking at an absurd rate.
He had a dinger yesterday.
Exactly, and so there you go. Maybe that home run gets a little bit of the weight off his shoulders, and he feels like he can just swing the bat normally now, and maybe he's not to say that he is pushing or really feeling like he's got to do incredible things, but maybe that settles him in. And I think that the thing that has really blindsided people, we spent so much of spring training being like, is MJ Melendez going to hit? Is MJ Melendez going to hit? Is he going to be able to bounce back from a struggle in 2024? Well, I don't think a lot of people had the Michael Garcia breakout going, but he's hitting the ball hard. He's walking at a super high rate, and he
can play all over the field.
He's not striking out a ton, yeah. And he's, defensively playing a good second base, a good third base, and he's gotten some
center
field as well, yeah. And I think that positional versatility really sets the Royals up well. If he's going to be this kind of bat and he can shift around and play different defensive positions, that allows them, as we get further into the summer, to make some decisions about roster spots and who they're having to make a trade for to bolster the lineup, and that's really helpful.
Well, I think, that's a great point. Going into the season, there was a lot of talk MJ Melendez, a lot of talk about Hunter Renfroe, and now here we are 35 games through the season, and two of the Royals' top contributors have been Michael Garcia and Drew Waters, who started the year in AAA. Those are two guys, they're really producing. We know Michael, he always hit the ball hard. Now it seems to be finding less people's gloves. His batting average on balls in play was so low. It was almost unbelievable how hard he was hitting and just how unlucky he was getting. One note on the Royals before we get off this, our sports director, Malia Campbell, is out there at the stadium today. She found out that the Royals were wearing KCFD Station 42 shirts in honor of Graham Hoffman. They said a lot of nice words about Graham Hoffman, talking about how he's, a lot of people look up to the Royals, but the Royals are saying people like Graham Hoffman, those are the real heroes in Kansas City. So a very nice, touching move there by the Royals wearing those shirts today. Moving on to our next topic. Today was the last day of Chiefs rookie minicamp out there at the training facility. The Chiefs had 7 draft picks, about 10 undrafted free agents, but in total, Gabe, there were about 87 players out there this weekend, all trying to catch the eyes of Andy Reid. But the one guy that has the eyes of Chiefs fans is obviously first-round pick, offensive tackle Josh Simmons. He was out there. We got our first glimpse of him in a Chiefs uniform. He was wearing pads. He was wearing a helmet. He was working out in individual drills, but he did not work out with his teammates, or especially when there was defense. Kind of listening to some of listening to Simmons and also listening to Andy Reid, kind of sounds like the Chiefs are trying to get a full grasp of where he's at, but obviously this is a situation they want to take cautiously. Andy Reid, though, he did say that Simmons, he was moving around pretty good, but what's most important to me was Andy Reid said there is a lot of talent there. When Andy Reid says something like that, we have to listen. Gabe, what are your kind of impressions of the first 3 days of the Josh Simmons era here in Kansas City?
I don't think that we were ever going to get Andy Reid being like, you know what, Josh Simmons,
he's trash.
He was doing less than I was expecting him to. I think that the glowing praise is to be taken with a grain of salt because it's 3 days in early May before his rookie season, and a rookie season that we don't know how much he'll play in. I still think I've discussed this with Marlia on the show. I've talked to you about this, and our thoughts pre-draft versus post-draft I think are a little different to see. Are the Chiefs committed to this? Are the Chiefs okay with his medicals? We were unsure about that pre-draft, and with the selection of it, that certainly signals that that's what they're okay with. I think that the process of taking someone who is a top 10 talent at 32 makes plenty of sense because you're not going to get chances to pick top 10 talents that low in the draft. I think the closest that you'd probably ever see it is when the Chiefs were like, oh, we have to trade up, and they traded up for Trent McDuffie to get him in the early 20s.
He got 21,
and they felt like he was a guy who was a top 10, top 15 guy, and they didn't do much of their homework on him because they were like, he's
not going to be there.
He's too good to be around when we're going to be picking. And so that has worked out. There obviously were not the injury concerns with Trent McDuffie. It was truly just they didn't believe that he was going to be in their range. Whereas Josh Simmons, they felt like he was going to be in their range because of the injury concerns. And so we'll see. I truly think we're not going to really know where he's at because I don't think that the Chiefs are going to come out and be super open and forthright with what all he's how greatly he's progressing or how average he's progressing in terms of a recovery from a patellar tendon issue. We're not going to know until we get to St. Joseph and we can see, is he participating with the second team? Is he participating with the first team? Is he just doing individual drills still? That's something that we'll figure out in late July. And so we'll see with that. I still think that there's plenty of excitement around the rest of the draft class. You were out there this weekend?
No, we had Neil Jones out there both days. But
Neil out there, yes. But from what I've seen and heard, Omar Norman Lott seemed like he was an interesting character for people. I remember being out there with talking to him 5 years ago at ASU when he was a freshman, sophomore, and so that personality is still there. Based on the Chief, I take it with a grain of salt again, but the Chiefs social clips are always an interesting thing of like, who are they pushing out there?
Yeah.
And Brashard Smith's getting some of that kind of love, and I think that given the opportunity at the running back position, he is certainly someone I will have my eyes on in St. Joseph this summer.
Yeah, both of the guys that you just talked about, Omar Norman Lott and Brashard Smith, both drew praise from Andy Reid for what they did this weekend. But I want to go back to Josh Simmons because I know a lot of Chiefs fans, they really think that this is a home run pick. And we saw over the weekend that Simmons signed his rookie deal. I think it was 4 years, about $14 million. And there are a lot of people saying that this guy could potentially be a franchise left tackle. And I understand there is that upside. That, like maybe if he did not have this injury, he was going to be a top 5, top 10 pick. But we have to look at this through the lens of he did have this injury. It happened. It happened to his knee. It's real life, and there are a lot. I mean, left tackle is such an important position in the NFL. There are some people that say maybe outside of quarterback, there are people that argue it's the second most important position in all of football because protecting the quarterback is just so important. There are so many teams that could have picked Josh Simmons late in the draft and got him on one of those. I mean, 4 years, $14 million for a potential franchise left tackle is an absolute steal. So there are a lot of other teams that could have done this, and they chose not to. But I think what's really interesting for the Chiefs is if this does pan out, this is why I think so many fans like this, is because of the options that it will present to the Chiefs, because you could have a potential left tackle making very low money, which will allow you, you to free up the salary cap and find other players. So it's Josh Simmons. Let's be on the lookout. We saw him out there. The Chiefs like what they saw so far. He was moving. He was stretching. He was doing more than I think maybe fans and a lot of people, especially me and Neil, talking a lot more than maybe we anticipated. So good to see some of that. Maybe some other guys that are really standing out. I think a lot of people are really excited about the potential of the wide receiver Jalen Royals and his yards after catch ability. We've seen some talk about that. But again, going back to what we were talking about, the two guys Andy Reid highlighted. He talked about two defensive linemen, Omar Norman Lott and Ashton Gelati. So Gabe, you covered Omar for a couple years at Arizona State. Has he always kind of been this high energy, high motor type of player? Yeah,
and I think that the frustrating thing is that at least from my perspective, is that the talent evaluation of the roster that he was on was filled with a lot of pros. The execution and the wins didn't necessarily come with it, but you always knew that Omar Norman Lott was a highly touted recruit. I think he was a high 4-star, and then he goes to the SEC. He goes to Tennessee. He has some success. I think the knock that Chiefs fans had on him was that he did not play a ton at Tennessee. Well, he explained that as, well, our defensive line room rotated a ton, and that was
all the best college defensive line rooms. They all rotate. Georgia rotates. Yes. Tennessee rotates. Everybody rotates.
Tennessee rotates at an
you want fresh guys
level.
On the D line.
Yeah. So there's that. I'm intrigued to see what level of role he has, this year, and what level of role he's able to develop into, specifically on a Chiefs defensive line where he's going to be working he's not necessary. He is not. Yes, he's going to play some defensive tackle. He's not the size that Derek Nottie is. He's more in the Tershawn Wharton frame of body type, and so seeing how that kind of works out, I'm intrigued by. Gelati, you have the interesting story of him training throughout with George Karlaftis, and so you have that relationship.
Yeah, the same defensive end coach who was the guy that hooked him up.
Yeah, and so he was one of those guys who there's been stories about both the Jaguars and Rams wanting to either draft him or trade up to select him in that third round, and the Chiefs took him and kind of thwarted those plans for both of those organizations. I think that the pressure rate, he was one of the highest pressures in the country for defensive linemen, and that's typically more indicative of a guy being good than just sacks, because a sack could be somebody else beats a guy and they just clean up the sack, and so those aren't necessarily as much. And so when Gelati had, I think, 11.5 sacks 2 years ago.
Yeah, he led the ACC in sacks. Yep.
4 this year, and so people felt like, oh, he maybe dropped off, but his pressure rate was nearly the same. And so I'm intrigued to see what the defensive line room looks like. Chris Jones is always the core, the center of it. George Karlaftis has carved a nice role, and we know what Charles Menahue is. We know what Mike Dana is. But between Gelati, Norman Lott, and then year 3 of Felix, you feel like those guys are going to have to contribute for this group to hit its peak.
These two guys that the Chiefs drafted, Andy Reid giving them praise, but I think what's interesting, and maybe if we look at them, it kind of gives us a lens into how the Chiefs view football and how they view football as played in the NFL, because these are guys, they're not built to stop the run. These are guys who are pass rushers, one on the interior and one on the outside. There are some people that were questioning Ashton Gelati's size, that maybe he couldn't hold the edge there on the outside, and they're saying that if Steve Spagnuolo is going to take a guy that is undersized, there has to be something that he really likes, and these are two guys who are known to rush the passer. We listened to one of the Chiefs personnel guys. He was saying this is a passing league. That's how we view the football, or how we view the game of football. So interesting to see how those two are going to pan out. But they've drawn some early praise from Andy Reid, and it looks. He was saying they have high motor and that they're good core, good lower body strength, great for pass rushers. He seemed pretty excited by them. All right, now we got a couple more topics before we run out of time here. It was a big weekend in KC soccer for both Sporting KC and the KC Current. Sporting KC doing something that I literally did not know was possible. All right, here's what happened. So the Sporting KC won the game 1-0, but they did not attempt a single shot on goal. How did they score 1 goal? It was an own goal by the LA Galaxy. And to make all this make even less sense, the LA Galaxy were the league champions a year ago. This year they are in last place in the MLS. Gabe, what do you make of all that information?
I think that's the most incredible part, is that the Sporting has played other teams, and under the new leadership, it's been more free flowing. They've scored more goals, and this is just a complete abandonment of that. And so I know that they had the media game at halftime, and our Bill Hurlbrink was out there playing. Sounds like Bill had more shots on goal than Sporting KC did. So
Billy Boy,
it's just wild. It's good to see, though. You got 2 historic things this weekend: the Royals franchise record for home runs in a game, Sporting doing something that you didn't know was possible, I didn't think was possible, just is remarkable stuff. But you could go see whatever thousands more soccer matches and not seeing a team win with no shots on goal.
What's so funny to me about the Sporting KC winning this 1-0 with an own goal being the only goal of the game was that it's been about a month since Kerry Zavagnin has taken over for Peter Vermees. Going into the game, the Sporting's the guy they brought in to score all the goals, Dejan Joveljic, who used to play for the LA Galaxy. Someone asked him, like, hey, it's been about a month with Kerry. What's the biggest difference? He goes, well, with Kerry, he loves to get the ball and he loves to go up and attack, which as a striker is something that I like. And then here, a couple days later, they play the game and they don't get a shot off on goal. So that just it's kind of funny to hear the players say, oh, we're attacking. And then the literal next game, they don't attempt a single shot. Like, how did no one just 88th minute, we haven't got a shot off, let's let one rip. No one did that. It blows my mind. All right, moving to the other side of town. KC Current, they took on, they played again this weekend. They lost for the second game in a row. They started the year 5-0-0. Now they're 5-0-2, but they're still at the top of the table. It looks like the Current have found a little bit of an issue with their defense. In the last 2 games, they've given up the eventual game-winning goal off of a set piece. But still, fact remains, they're at the top of the table. Gabe, what's your status level with the Current? Are you panicking?
No,
not worried? What are your thoughts?
I'm not panicking. A lot of season left. Two games. I think that you have to look at the fact that over the long haul, this is a blip on the radar because the Current have consistently shown, and we've talked about this frequently, that change of leadership, change of roster, they're going to find ways to win. And so it's not ideal, certainly, but to me, I don't think it's something that is overly concerning.
Something I would find a little bit concerning about this is that it seems maybe teams have found a flaw with the KC Current, that they will be able to maybe attack because KC they defend with attack in mind, that maybe off these set pieces they can find the Current maybe in some compromising positions. And also, a couple weeks ago when they lost, last week when they lost at North Carolina, I mean, they gave up 2 goals in the 90th, one in the 90th and then one in the 93rd minute. Those are the types of losses that, I mean, it's tough on the psyche of a team. And then they go out on the road Friday night, late game at Seattle, and they're shut out. They didn't score a single goal. Not what you want to see. But again, the KC Current, they're still tied atop the league with the Orlando Pride. So, hey, until someone comes and knocks them off there, that's where they are. And on Sunday, Mother's Day, the KC Current playing on national TV on ESPN, once again representing Kansas City on the national stage, so good luck to them in that game. All right, 2 more topics here. We got about 8-9 minutes before we kind of have to absolutely get out of here. We're going to start with Norm Roberts, a longtime assistant at the University of Kansas basketball program. He was on Bill Self's inaugural staff at KU before he went and left for a couple of years, came back, spent 14 years in total with the Jayhawks. Gabe, I know you're a KU basketball fan, or you followed them for a very long time. Maybe what are some top memories for you of Norm Roberts when he was at Kansas?
I just think that there's been so much consistency, and that is not all just it's just Bill Self no matter what. Like, Bill Self has had consistency because he's had people on staff like Norm Roberts. He had him with him in Oral Roberts. He had him with him at Illinois for the years that he was there.
He had him at Tulsa also.
He had him at Tulsa, and he had him the first year that he was at KU before Norm took the St. John's job. And then he came back and kind of just picked up where he left off because he rejoined KU in 2012. His son Nico then was a walk-on at KU as well. And so I think that there was that brief period of time, would have been early, mid-2010s, where I think that was like prime Bill Self, no matter what. They're going to win the conference every year. They've got Norm Roberts on the sideline with his son. They've got Curtis Townsend on the sideline. And that group, that core has kind of stuck together. Now, yes, they had a down year this past season. This past 2 seasons has not been exactly that, and maybe it's time to change some things up and get some new voices and move the staff around. I think that this is probably just 37 years in college basketball is so much time spent in the game, and Norm Roberts has been around for so long, and now with what the sport is, NIL, transfer portal, all those things, I'm sure that every year is starting to feel like more than a year for certain coaches in rebuilding the program. But I think that it's to me, I would be as somebody who's followed KU, I think that you'd have to be happy for Norm that because he was at St. John's during the 2008 national championship, the fact that he was back on staff for the 2022 one, you feel like for all that he's done alongside Bill Self, he got kind of was deserving of getting one of those. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with Norm, I really think there's a lot of KU fans that are, kind of saluting him as he walks off into the sunset. But I think people need to realize these are big shoes to fill. When Bill Self was out a couple of years ago with health issues, who was the interim head coach? It was Norm Roberts. I mean, it could have been a number of other guys on the staff, but it was Norm. So congrats to him on an incredible career. It's been quite a run there with KU. Speaking of the KU Jayhawks, I was kind of surprised that they did not have a single player invited to the NBA Combine. I don't think they had a single player invited to the G League Combine. So I think there was a lot of KU fans obviously expecting a number one seed, as usual this year, expecting a lot of things. But I think the pros have kind of told us that there wasn't a lot of talent on the KU roster, especially in those upper levels. So next year, though, I think it could really change. Darren Peterson.
Yep.
But, Gabe, what do you make of that? No KU players invited to the Combine. I think it was the first time since 2009.
Yeah, I think that's just the league telling you what they think of Hunter Dickinson, and that's probably why Hunter Dickinson was in college for 5 years, because he was, yes, he got older, he got stronger, he got bigger, but he was basically the same player from his freshman year at Michigan through his graduate year at KU, in terms of skill set. He wasn't getting better as a defender. He wasn't getting more skilled offensively or more athletic or in better shape. He kind of just was what he was. The rest of it, I mean, yes, KJ Adams, he's got the torn Achilles. That's going to sideline him for a whole season. DeJuan Harris was not an NBA guard. And the rest of the roster is in the portal heading elsewhere. You've had Friday Rylan Griffin to Texas A&M. Zach Clemens is going to A&M. Diggy Coit is at Maryland. AJ Storrs at Ole Miss. So they're all kind of finding their own new places. And so next year, as you mentioned, we'll go on the record May 5th, 2025. We'll co-sign this take that KU will have a player invited to the Combine next year, and it will be Darren Peterson for sure.
Yeah, no, he has been unbelievable. But I think KU fans obviously not very excited about this year. But let's look at the national championship. Duke and Florida, those are guys, NBA players were all over that floor. If KU wants to get back to that level, they're going to have to get NBA players back on the roster. The last couple of years we've seen the results haven't been what fans have wanted, but we've also seen that maybe they didn't have the talent to do what fans expected them to do. Now, last topic we're going to talk about, the KC Mavericks. Your Kansas City Mavericks are in action tonight out at Cable Dahmer Arena. They are in the second round of the Kelly Cup playoffs, taking on the Tahoe Night Monsters. Boy, Gabe, I love the team names in the ECHL. Yeah, the Tahoe Night Monsters. Yesterday, the Tahoe Night Monsters led 3 separate times at Cable Dahmer Arena, but guess what? Every single time the Mavs answered the call. 5 third-period goals. Gabe, is it a hockey night in Kansas City? How excited are you for this game? Are we going to get you out at a KC Mavs game this year? Because I think everyone needs to go. It's so much fun.
I'm tied to my desk tonight watching the Royals game for sure.
Let's call our boss. Let's get you a little PTO. No, we got to get you on a sports assignment out there. We got a web story out of it.
If they can keep moving and advancing through the playoffs, we'll have to get out there. But I will say that third period is, to me, emblematic of what we're watching every single night with the playoff hockey at any level. You see Jets and Blues, if you're talking about the crosstown or cross-state hockey club, the Blues blowing a 3-1 lead in the last 2 minutes and the game-tying goal with 1.6 seconds left. That is the kind of stuff that is nightmare fuel. And I'm sure that whoever the head coach is for the Tahoe Night Monsters had nightmares all last night thinking 5 goals in the last 20
he sees
minutes.
Tato Had barking at him from across the way in his nightmares. The KC Mavs, unbelievable. One thing I want to say about the Mavs before we run out of time is this is a team, they're a really tight-knit group, and they really believe that they are one of the best teams in the league. We talked to them maybe yesterday. I asked them, guys, there were several times in this game, like you guys were down. It really seemed, I was unbiased in this, but the referees, the other team scored 3 goals on power plays. All 3 goals came on power plays. They're really good on the penalty. The Mavs had a lot of things going against them. It felt like the officials were against them, but they found it within them to not let that bother them. They were resilient, and they came out and won 5 goals in the third. That's the kind of stuff champions do. They were a league runner-up a year ago. Tonight, they're trying to take a 2-0 series lead against those Night Monsters. So that's what we got here on Cinco de Mayo. Gabe, you got any notes to close?
Royals are going to win tonight. I think it's the start of a big homestand. I think success on the homestand is 5-2 or better.
All right, well, we're going to see the Royals wearing those Graham Hoffman shirts tonight. A very nice touch from them. We're going to have highlights of that coming up tonight at 10 as well as from the Mavs game. So that's all we have here on this Monday. So have a good one, and thanks for joining us today, guys.